Welcome to People with Purpose. I am your host, Sylvain Rochon. I'm a speaker, an author, a serial entrepreneur, and a business strategist. My purpose is to engineer a paradise on Earth using cutting-edge technology. I hope this show will give you excellent examples of individuals that chose to do great things in their personal and professional lives. Perhaps they will inspire you to follow in their footsteps. The show's format is very simple. I ask my guests 3 simple questions. What is your personal purpose? Why is it important to you? And how did you get started? Now let's hear from our guest.
Hello everybody, how are you doing? This is a pretty important day for me. I am excited to have as a guest Scott Santens. He is a writer and advocate of basic income for all. And he's an author of 2 books, as far as I know. Maybe another one is in the works, I'm not sure. The books are What Do We Do About Inequality and Surviving the Machine Age, Intelligent Technology and the Transformation of Human Work. Scott has also written a lot for the Huffington Post, the TechCrunch, the Boston Globe, Basic Income Earth Network, and other periodicals and blogs all over the internet. And I have personally been following his writings quite a bit in the past maybe 4 to 6 months. Avid reader and also retweeter of whatever Scott writes. So welcome, Scott.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's really important, like those that follow this channel of People with Purpose, is to illustrate how individuals can attempt to change the world, make the world a better place. And I do salute you more than others recently with the advocacy of basic income. I think I write about it a lot as well, and super important. But the main question today is more about why do you do it? What is your life purpose? Why do you do what you do?
Well, yeah, if you were to ask what my purpose here is, it's that I feel I want to do something that I think most people really want to do, which is to leave their mark on the world in a visible way in helping to make it a better place. And I think a lot of people want to help make things better for everybody. It's just, a lot of times the only way you can do that is if you're wealthier, or, if you're in a position to have like a job that does a particularly, transformative thing, or, but I think this is just something that a lot of people want to do. They want to make some kind of difference in society. We're as humanity, we're a social animal. And, fortunately, I'm lucky enough that I've been able to crowdfund my own basic income and be able to use that to pursue this work that I feel is so important.
You mentioned that a lot of people want to do this type of work, not necessarily exactly the way you do it,
Sure.
But they want to follow their passion. They want to help others and stuff like that. Why aren't there more people like us that dedicate their time to do this? What do you think?
I think that we've created this this system around us, this world, this environment that is actually kind of makes it difficult to do these things. I call back to Maslow's pyramid a lot, because I think it's just a really good way of seeing this, is that in Maslow's pyramid is at the bottom, you've got your basic needs of, say, food and security and these things. And then after you secure those most basic needs, then you go for these higher needs, which is, community and friendship and, being with other people, this in the self-improvement, becoming the best you that you can be. There's all these other things that are important to us beyond our most basic biological, physiological needs. But we've created this system where those aren't granted to you unconditionally. You have to fight for these most basic needs. And so a lot of people are just working every day, just trying to get enough to scrape by. And they're never able to climb up that pyramid to higher levels. And so I'm fortunately in the position where I've got that base covered. The base of the pyramid is covered. And so I'm free every day to pursue those higher levels of the pyramid. And most people just aren't. Especially if you're born rich, great, you are, and that your basic needs are covered. But we need to create a system where the basics are covered for everybody. And if we did that, then everyone could spend their days on seeking those upper levels instead of just on this like treadmill, then this daily just fight to survive of just your basics. I think it's just very counterproductive for society as a whole.
I think, I mean, you're saying it exactly the way I would say it, and it hasn't been all rosy for you either, I'm sure, because you say that you created your own basic income, but as an entrepreneur myself, that didn't come by snapping your fingers. You actually had to put a lot of work to actually create this for yourself, because the government certainly is not providing you with anything to help you out. There's no basic income in New Orleans, as far as I know. So it's not something that is within reach of the general population unless they have a plan and they work at it and they build it, which takes a lot of effort, an entrepreneurial spirit. So I have a sense that this concept was important enough to you. Mm-hmm. For you to put in that effort to create that system with a plan of some sort. So why was that so important to you that you actually built this for yourself, enabling you to do this full-time advocacy work?
Yeah, well, that's the thing is, I was able to make a decision that, it involves risk. If any person who starts their own business knows that there's actually a greater possibility of failure than success. And I guess, the way it started out this was, but most of my adult life, I've been self-employed. So I'm okay with insecurity and risk. And what I see as the future of the labor market as it's been transforming now anyways, because, we don't have these careers and stuff that we used to. It is more about this, like, making your own work and finding where you can get it and patching together incomes and stuff. So I was just kind of already in this world, and I started researching and writing about basic income. And the more I got into it, just the more important I felt that it was. And I just, eventually reached a point where, I'm doing work and then I'm doing basic income stuff on the side. And I just kind of reached a point where it's like, this is so important that I can't imagine putting any more of my time into not doing this because this is so important. Mm-hmm. So at that point, it was like, well, I've got to figure out a way that would enable me to do that. And I thought, well, around the time Patreon started, I thought, well, here's a platform that allows like the crowdfunding of incomes on a regular basis. And that seems to be a good avenue for actually the crowdfunding of basic incomes, where instead of actually, and it would be different too. I wasn't looking to crowdfund like a salary. I wasn't looking to run this as a business where, say, I'm interested in earning, $100,000 a month, and then $2,000, and then $3,000, and then $4,000, and then to try to earn as much as I can doing this. I was just interested in crowdfunding a basic income of $1,000 a month. And then I thought, well, what I'll do is I will donate anything I earn over that to other people who are pledging to do the same thing on Patreon. Because I was thinking, let's actually kind of crowdfund a whole like collection of people with their basic needs covered with these basic incomes. And so, and that could also show that it is just a floor. So I'm still able to earn additional income. Like if I wanted to, I could be spending today like driving for Uber or something. I mean, like, sure. or I could actually be pitching articles to various places and trying to figure out, who's going to pay me the most for an article, and then selling these articles. Like, I'm not prohibited from any of that. But the important part is that I have to have enough to, cover the basics. You got to be able to eat. You got to be able to pay your rent. And with those basics covered, then all of a sudden you have this new choice opens up where you can pursue additional income or you can pursue unpaid work. And that's something that it's really helped shape the way that I see basic income too, because I see myself being even like more interested in doing unpaid work. It's just something about if I sell something, then oftentimes I'll give away, say, the publishing rights, and so I'm not allowed to publish it anywhere else. And let's say if it's behind a paywall or something, then it's only going to go to their readers. And let's say, it's like 50,000 or something like that. But if I publish it out there into the world for free with like a Creative Commons license and say anybody can republish this if they want to, just say my name, put my name to it and publish it as is, and you can republish it anywhere you want to. So there, because there's not this drive to earn an income, and I'm just giving it out there for free like a gift, then suddenly more people can read it. So I could see, say, 5 million readers for something that would have had 50,000. And that's so much more important to me, is to reach more people. And I think there's even like a difference of motivation. It just feels better to do this like intrinsically oriented instead of extrinsically. Like if you're doing something for money, even if I'm choosing to do it, I don't know, it just kind of feels differently. So I'm almost seeing like a preference because of having a basic income where I just really enjoy putting stuff out there for free, actually, more so than I do selling it anymore. Which I think is kind of an interesting effect to consider.
Yeah, I think it is quite interesting. I mean, I'm just putting the idea out there. Is it a little bit like because you're being funded by Patreon, so patrons, right?
Yeah.
That support your work and your advocacy and all this stuff. It feels like since you are supported, in fact, it feels like you're doing a job, and you can control your content. And you're kind of giving back to those that are actually encouraging you. It's so that it's a symbiosis of sorts.
Yeah, and I think that's a really important point that you just touched upon there too. Is that I have the freedom to communicate my own ideas as to what's important. So if you extend that to say First Amendment rights, like how many people are not saying things because they feel that they can't because they'll lose their incomes, or how much art is being made that's being made for, say, profit, what will get money versus what is like its own art, has its own artistic merits that the creator of this would actually have wanted to do if it weren't for that. Just like YouTube content, how much content is being made for clicks, how many articles are being written for clicks versus something that they really want to say. So I think that this really does, the unconditional granting of an income allows people to have this clearer voice of what they want to say and why they want to say it versus this pure kind of extrinsically motivated, profit-driven kind of way of doing things.
Well, let's dive a little bit, and I don't usually do this, but I think basic income concepts are transformatively important to discuss right now and to implement and deploy in society. So I'm of course in agreement with you. So what you just said, which applies to yourself because you're living it, you create it for yourself. Like what kind of society would we be if everybody was enabled in this kind of situation, whether on their own, like you're doing it, because they're fans or whatever that are feeding into a system, or just by the government, just like here's an unconditional basic income. Okay, now go nuts. Like, what kind of transformation do you see in society if we're able to reach that point?
Oh, it's really profound. I mean, this is why I got so big into this too, is because it's just so profound, this kind of world-changing effects that we would see. And so there's a few angles on this too. So, let's look at first, like say risk aversion. So right now we've got a system where catastrophic failure is possible. So this is kind of from an engineering perspective. So let's say you start something, you have an idea, you think it's a really good idea, and you take a risk to do it, and it fails. So now you're on the streets, you're not able to eat, If you have a family, then you've actually subjected your entire family now to, say, hunger and homelessness, possibly.
Mhm.
And so this idea, people have to consider that, and they're thinking, okay, so do I want to pursue this idea that could actually change the world for the better, or is it just too much of a risk because of what I could be losing for both myself and my family? So we see a lot of people right now are choosing the safer, non-risky route. So if you actually enable that route, if you, and this is from an engineering perspective, so that you don't design, say, like a computer system or like from an IT kind of perspective for things to crash to the point of utter failure, and then everything just breaks. Like, you want to go for what's called like graceful degradation or graceful failure, where stuff, it's not catastrophic, it just like slowly fails, and then you're able to start it right back up again and everything's fine. That's what you want to do, because then you remove that risk of this catastrophic failure. So if we did that, you'd have so many more people actually pursuing these innovative ideas. And not only could they pursue those ideas from like a security, lack of fear of risk perspective, but they'd also essentially have basic income as like a capital for the people. So they'd have more access to starting capital. They would have more ability to find workers to work for them, because workers who are passionate about an idea too could work for free until it reaches the point of profitability. So you'd have this greater ability to actually start things and get people together and do those things. And then you'd look at basic income as consumer income. So you'd have more consumers, more customers that could actually purchase whatever you've innovated or use that service or goods that you're providing versus now. So like, just from an entrepreneurship perspective, you can just see a much more innovative society that's less worried about risk of the fearing of failure. And I've written something about this before, kind of comparing it to evolution, where evolution is built on, say, mutation and things working or not working. And so if you create a society where, let's say, the mutation rate's better, as in there's more risk being taken, more innovation being tried, then there's more stuff's going to fail, and there's more stuff's going to win. But the failure also, too, you learn from that. If something fails, obviously that's not the right thing to try, and you try something else. And you're able to keep trying over and over and over and over again. You're iterating your failures and failures, and then until you get that win, until the thing that works. And so I think that's an important way to look at this too, is that, right now we see failure as being a bad thing. We're trying to avoid failure. And so I think having a basic income could change this mindset and say, failure is just learning what doesn't work. And it helps us to learn what does work, and we can do that. So that's just one kind of side of this I think is big, aside from the ability to, pursue more artistic integrity. I think we'd see like a second renaissance of creativity, of art done for its own sake. How many artists out there are creating paintings or something, or sculptures specifically for someone who's going to buy it, versus, actually, just creating something for the fun of creating it. And so how much more would be creative from that? Another element, I think, too, and this is from my own kind of experience, is that, like you mentioned, the way the Patreon works is I've got around, over 300 patrons right now. And so I'm crowdfunded by 300 people. And so a whole group of people is enabling me to pursue what's important to me. And so I'm very thankful for them, and I recognize that they're making it possible. And there's also that greater stability of there being that many versus, say, one boss. I'm not doing something for one boss. I'm not doing something even for 300 patrons, where they're supporting what I do because they like what I do, but I'm not doing it for them. But I'm very thankful for that. So if you kind of scale that up to a full government provided unconditional basic income, so you're looking at, essentially, you would have 350 million or whatever crowdfunders. It's like, that's how many
that's
people
what it
there.
is, right?
Right.
It's like
So
a huge Patreon.
and then then you're more thankful, I think. I think that builds social cohesion too, because you know that what you're doing is only possible because of all the other people who make it possible. So I think it's a recognition of interdependence, which is already true. We are already all interdependent on each other. Now, every one of us, we didn't build our computer that we're talking on right now. We didn't build the technology. We didn't build the internet. We didn't farm our food that we had for breakfast today or dinner last night. Like, we've had this massive division of labor so that we're all dependent on each other. And I think basic income just recognizes that and makes it clear. Because right now, even though that's still true, people see like taxation like theft, and they're not receiving anything for what they're giving. They feel that they're giving and getting nothing back, which is not true, because they're getting all sorts of stuff back, just not only government services, but again, like the internet that was government funded. There's all sorts of technology and things around us that is made possible by government. But it's not naked. It's not clear. It's not visible. A basic income is visible. You get it every month. It's a check. And by having that, and by knowing that that's actually like crowdfunded through the whole country that it's provided in, I think you see each other as helping each other, as enabling each other, as trusting each other. And
Because there's more clarity.
Yeah, it's more clear. There's a lot of clarity. And so that last element too is trust. And I think that's a really important part too that we're looking at change. Is right now our society is built on essentially distrust. It's that we don't trust each other, which is why, say, government provided benefits are always targeted and conditional. And it's saying that no, you're only going to get this if you can prove to me that you're going to do this in return. You got to jump through these hoops for me in order to get this. And I assume that you're going to use this on drugs and alcohol and all this crap. So I'm not going to give you cash. I'm going to give you food stamps. I'm not going to give you cash. I'm going to give you a housing voucher that you can only use on housing. I'm not going to give you cash. I'm going to give you free electricity or something. Like it's all this distrust, and it's this distrust actually prevents all of these great things from happening. And then the evidence backs this up. From all the experiments that we see that the provision of cash does not lead to people making all these bad decisions. In fact, they use that to make better decisions. They use that self-employment jumps up through the roof. I mean, there's a huge increase in self-employment and entrepreneurship, and there's actually a decrease in temptation goods like alcohol and tobacco and drugs and things. And a lot of this stuff that we see is like a mechanism of self-medication. It's like an outcome. It's an emergent result of our system that we've created. So if we don't want people to be abusing drugs and alcohol and these things, then we have to look at why that they're taking it. Where's the demand for this stuff coming from? Well, the demand is like a self-medication thing. It's a way of trying to control your environment, to reduce your stress levels. So we want to reduce stress levels. We want to improve the environment, and that's what basic income does. So, and also from experiments, we see that social cohesion increases too. Mm-hmm. That there is like this increase in trust. That people do actually come together in ways that they wouldn't otherwise, like across castes in India, where they usually wouldn't, say, get together. And then you see it with the basic income experiments in India that they actually got together where they weren't before. And so it's crazy. This is why that I got so deep into this, is because I looked into all the evidence, and it's just positive result after positive result after positive result. And I'm like, why aren't we doing this already? We should have done this like centuries ago, I would say. Back to Thomas Paine, when he's looking at this, he said, well, here we've created a society that's actually, it makes things worse for some people versus a state of nature. So yeah, by organizing society in this new way, we can do much more than we could absent this. So it's better than the state of nature, but we have made things worse. So he looked at this as saying, well, we've got to actually make this so that no one is worse off than the natural state. and no one created the earth. And so, people should actually pay for a rent on the earth that they use, and provide an income for people. In Thomas Paine's, his idea was like a capital grants for those who turn 18 and to pay for the disabled, basically for basing for the disabled people and seniors. But his whole idea was that the system that we've created is actually hurting people. Let's actually use the fact that all this natural resources and stuff is owned by all of us to benefit all of us, and make it so that no one's better off, that everyone is actually better off thanks to the system that we've created. So this was centuries ago that we could have done this, and we still have yet to do it.
Yeah. So it seems to me like some people decided that it wasn't the way they liked it. They wanted to keep the monarch, the monarch kind of system where everybody owns everybody else and the land is owned and this kind of things. Which is terrible.
Yeah, and I think just part of that too, I think, and this is, again, it is the change as to what it is, what it has been, and what it could be, is this scarcity thinking is what it comes down to. So I understand that back in Thomas Paine's day, there was certainly a greater understanding of scarcity, and there was more scarcity around. Even I would argue that even then it was possible to produce, say, an income for everybody using, like a land value tax, but there was certainly more scarcity, and everyone was a lot more farmers. There's a lot more agriculture. There's not like an industrial system, but we've gone beyond that, and so here we are now, where we say about 1% of our total effort goes to agriculture now versus the majority back then. And here we are now, we're industrialized, and we have machines doing so much work for us, and we have essentially eliminated scarcity for a lot of things. Like anything digital, we've eliminated scarcity for that. Like we can create an unlimited number of books and movies and music. Like all of that stuff is fully infinite now at this point. And I think that our thinking is more scarcity driven, even though we're past a lot of this, like if only 1% of our total effort is going towards food, then essentially food is no longer scarce, especially if we also look at half of our food is wasted.
Yeah.
So if we've created a society where, as you can say, like a fraction of 1% of all work is going towards feeding everyone, then why are we still paying for it? Why does it still carry a cost that we have to exchange through our labor in order to obtain? So we're just not looking at how much abundance we've already created, and it's preventing more abundance from being made. And I say that as in, it's interesting to think about how much automation we're not already doing that we could do. And a lot of this is because of, as long as we require jobs to live, we're creating jobs that don't need to exist, and they're non-productive. They could be doing other things. Because we require jobs to exist, we're essentially bidding against machines. So our wages are lower than what they would be otherwise, because we are scratching and we're fighting in order to make sure that we keep that job, and we're fighting to make sure machines don't do that job, which of course is, I think, bad for all of society, because again, we could be creating even more abundance if we use the technology we have right now. And I've read that we could essentially automate half of our existing work with machines. So if we give all the, if everything that we can do now that machines can do for us is handed off to machines, and all the work that doesn't need to exist because we're just making this stuff up in order to get the income to survive, if we eliminate all of that, then I just imagine the potential productivity there, where we could all be working, say, 15 hours a week, doing the jobs that are left, and that would be jobs that can't be done by machines. So it's the stuff that we'd want to do. We'd be choosing to do it. So we know that voluntary work is more productive than involuntary work. We know that intrinsically motivated work is better than extrinsically motivated work. So just it would be so much more productive. There would be so much more abundance, and I think we would more clearly see that it's a lie to think that civilization is a zero-sum society where for me to be better off, someone else has to be worse off. It's not true. We can all be better off if we work together. We can all be better off, and I think that we can, through basic income, we can begin to see this as a positive sum society, and we can start to actually orient ourselves and our systems and our environments around this idea of abundance instead of scarcity.
Yeah, I see basic income as a transformative starting point for to reach that, what you just described, a society where, from what I caught myself saying about a couple of weeks ago, I think instead of trying to aim at the lowest unemployment rate, let's try to make it as high as possible.
Exactly. Yeah.
Leveraging technology.
Yeah.
Let's change that goal.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And then think it a different way.
Yeah.
Exactly. Nobody wants to be employed. Let's be honest. Nobody wants to work a job. Everybody wants to follow their passion, though.
Right.
We want to be active. Like, we don't want to sit on the couch for like 3 years or 60 years at a time. No one enjoys vacation time for 60 years.
Yeah. So I think part of the problem here too is that we tie up jobs and work as the same thing, and they're just not the same thing. So when we're talking about, say, a goal of full unemployment, we're not talking about a full, say, laziness, full, like, nobody doing anything. We're talking about full unemployment, as in the jobs that need not be done by us are done by machines, or they don't need to be done at all, which frees us to do work. And so we can do the meaningful work that is important to us. And yet we can still get paid for that work, or we can do it for free. And then also, of course, there's the importance of leisure as well. I wouldn't even say that means laziness. Leisure is not the same thing. You can have a lot of fun doing something that's not considered work that actually could be considered work. You need that kind of rejuvenation and regeneration through your leisure time to actually really kind of drive your working time. And also, as Bertrand Russell described too, it's like keys and locks. It's like saying that if you or bread and bread making, and the fact that why is it that it's only good to make bread, but it's like seen as a bad thing to eat the bread? And so, obviously, those are two sides of the same coin here. You got to have both. Otherwise, there's no purpose in creating the bread if you're not supposed to eat it. So we've got to see that the leisure is also important to all of this as well. You need leisure and you need work, but what you don't need is jobs. Jobs are not this necessary thing that we see it as, that we've kind of been conditioned to believe that it's so important. It's more than that.
Now, Scott, a final question. All this passion and all, it's been culminating because you've been doing your work, right? Advocating. But I kind of wonder, like, people that take these kind of decisions to just go off the employment grid, so to speak, and self-employed and doing what you do and advocating, you have to have this passion. This type of passion has to come from somewhere. So there must be some kind of story from your younger life, your younger self. Like, where does this passion and this purpose come from? If you think back the farthest you can think of.
Well, if I were to think back, I think there's a decision along the way where, as a kid, I was raised in a Christian family, and I got into science, and I thought science was fascinating, and through that, I eventually reached the point where I decided that I was an atheist, that it didn't make any sense to believe in these things, because it just didn't make any sense. And part of that, I remember there was like a poem or part of a speech written from Madeline O'Murray of the American Atheists back in the day. And I can't even remember now, like the full, I don't remember the full words of the speech. But what it came down to is that it's more important that we essentially create like a heaven on earth. That we can't know what's beyond death, but we know what's here, and it's important to actually, as mankind, to create what we can here to improve things.
Mm-hmm.
That instead of a church built, that we should be building a school or a hospital. That all of this kind of religion stuff, that thinking about how great things could be after we die, it doesn't make any sense. That we should be spending our lives making things immediately better for everybody. And I think that was, say, an earlier moment, or say an earlier decision of deciding that it was important to me that I somehow help things get better for everybody. So when I came to the idea of basic income, I realized that this was an idea that it wasn't really being fought for yet at the time. I mean, this is in 2013. And so, there were certainly people before me that, certainly the ones who founded the Basic Income Earth Network. There have been people who have really been pushing for this from an academic perspective for decades. But there wasn't really a huge popular movement right now, even though there were kind of previous things where people were fighting for things like, say, the share the wealth movement, from Huey Long, and the Townsend movement that helped create the Social Security system. So there's been movements before that were really pushing for the provision of, say, a basic income or to everybody, but it just was kind of not here. There wasn't a whole lot of activity. And I saw that there was a place for me to play a role in this, where I feel like I have the ability to read, say, something academic and kind of translate it into something more understandable by more people. And so I'm heavily influenced by Carl Sagan, who is one of my favorites, both growing up, and I still, that's what I think is important. Is he wasn't exactly maybe respected by all scientists, where they thought, oh, he's not a real scientist, he's a popular scientist. He's but I think there's a hugely important role in that, to take something that is not understood by a lot of people and to make it understood and make it fun and make it enjoyable and inject passion into this. So I just saw that there was a place for me to kind of do that, where I could there was not content being created, there was not stuff being written, where basic income should have been mentioned, and there was the stuff that was being written was very academic and dry and long, and stuff that people were not going to read, they were not going to share. And so I wanted to do what I could to change that. And I think by doing that, I was able to, I found that niche that I could make a difference in, and it's only grown from there. And I'm even more passionate about this now. It just needs to happen, and I need to do everything I can to help make it happen.
Well, your tweets are certainly passionate. That's for sure, and that's part of the enjoyment of it, is when we get a sense that a person is truly passionate about something that is also rational. It's not an emotional subject. It's actually very, very rational. It's very well studied. It's been, there's how many pilots have there been just in the past 50 years? You would probably know the number, but it's dozens, right, around the world, and you have a lot of passion around it. I mean, you just gotta go check, right? You just have to what's really behind it. And the popularization of the lingo, of the research and the theory is, I think, it's really important what you do.
Yeah.
Because it makes it accessible to common people. And unfortunately, in some places in the world, the education system is not so hot. They need it to be dumbed down a bit, just to make it palatable. So we're all kind of stuck in an education system that is obsolete, in my view, that trains employees that are risk averse. right? And that's not where the future is leading us. And so people like yourself and others that I interview routinely on this show, I think you're leading the way. And the purpose of this is that people that are watching this video may see themselves in you. Is that, okay, well, maybe I should do something that I'm passionate about to help others.
Yeah.
And it may not be basic income, but it could be something else.
But
That's okay.
as long as you're doing something that you're intrinsically motivated by, that you feel is important, and especially if you're driven by wanting to improve the world around you, then I want that to happen, and I want people to be free to do that. It's a shame that so many people are prevented from doing that.
Yeah, I think if people are genuine in their efforts in improving the world, others are interested in following up and supporting. And I mean, we see that in your efforts with Patreon, which reminds me, ladies and gentlemen that are watching this video, Scott is entirely self-funded by individuals that support his work. So I would encourage you to go on his Patreon page and check it out and see if you can support him, because basic income is supremely important in my view as well. And so go ahead and support that, get educated, get to this popularized dissertations of what exactly it is and what the benefits it could be to all of our lives, really. And hopefully Scott is going to be able to travel more and do even more. And that's I'm sure you'd like to do that, eh, Scott?
yeah, that's the goal.
Excellent. Now, so that's it for right now. This is great, Scott. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's a good conversation.
All right, thanks a lot.
I hope you enjoyed the interview. If you did, please subscribe to the channel, comment, like, and share. Please join me also on Clubify, a social app allowing us to share ideas and where you can participate in some of my projects. The link is in the section below. Also, if you wish to recommend someone great I should interview, please let me know. And as always, follow your passion. See you next week.